Well, you would think that I timed that music out to stop just then. I'm Bill Gibbs. Excuse me, I'll be the moderator for the session today if I can get the words out. It is a pleasure to have each of you there, and I know there are many more that are joining us even as we go. Let me get started with this. The session is being recorded. We'll be sending a link to the recording and to the slides to everyone who registered for the session today. For our February webinar, we are very delighted to have Dr. Ron Martin join us with an approach to artificial intelligence informational activities. I think you'll enjoy this presentation. It's packed full of a lot of great information. Here's the agenda that we'll be following. I'll talk just a little bit about capital in case there happens to be one or two people in the audience not that familiar with us. A little bit of housekeeping, and then I'll introduce the presenter, and that's what the bulk of the time together will be. Toward the end of the hour, we will have open this floor up for question and answers, and then talk about upcoming webinars and how to get a copy of the recording, slides, and certificate. Now, again, I always feel a little bit uncomfortable. I have a little slight amount of discomfort talking about capital, looking at the list of attendees, because I know so many of you are students, so many of you are faculty members, and most of you know about it, but in the slight chance that a few don't. We were established in 1927, which means we're coming up on our 100th anniversary. That's a long time in the technical world. It's a long time period. We're one of the few private universities in the nation that is specifically devoted to STEM-based education. We offer degrees all the way from the associate right up to the doctoral level. We are nonprofit, private and accredited. Each of those are powerful terms, but the key one is accredited. We're accredited by the Middle States. For those of you not residing in the United States, a regional accreditation, which is what we have, is the highest level of accreditation that any university in the United States can receive. Just one little commercial, and that is that in the topic we'll be covering today, that we actually offer a number of degrees related to both artificial intelligence and to critical infrastructure. So if you're interested in a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, feel free to follow up on that. We'd love to talk to you some more. Here's the housekeeping. We'll answer questions at the conclusion of the presentation, but actually use the text chat to pop in your question right on the spot. We're going to return after the presentation to the Q&A, and we will work through all of the questions so that you can get them answered. We'll answer as many as we can in the hour that we are together. We're not activating microphones and webcams for participants, so the way that you need to communicate to us is through the text chat. As I mentioned, we'll send a link to the recording and a link to the slides to all registrants, and it'll be available on our webinar webpage. We'll also make available to both those watching this live right now and also those watching it on demand later a participation certificate, and those are available by request at the end of the hour. I'll talk about how you can obtain one if you want one. Okay, now with that, let me introduce our presenter so we can get right into the presentation. Dr. Ron Martin is Professor of Practice at Capital Technology University, specializing in the functional areas of critical infrastructure, industrial control system security, identity, credential, and access management. He serves on the board of directors for many nonprofit and profit organizations, such as the International Foundation for Protection Officers, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, that is IEEE, the P28270 Trust Security Working Group. He's a voting member of the U.S. Technical Advisory Group to the International Standards Organization and a member of the Cloud Security Alliance Zero Trust Software-Defined Perimeter Experts Working Group. That is a lot of words to put in there. Dr. Martin retired from the U.S. Army in 1999, and then he put in another second full career with the U.S. government, retiring in 2011. During his federal service, he served with the Department of Commerce and the Department of Health and Human Services as program director for the development and implementation of their ICAM programs. He's a member of the Federal Identity, Credentialing, and Access Management Roadmap Development Team. He has been. And recently he was designated by the U.S. Department of State as a Fulbright specialist. It's not on this slide, but he earned his PhD in technology from Capital and an MS in management from Frostburg State here in the state of Maryland. With that, I'm going to give control to Dr. Martin. Bear with us as I stop sharing and he starts sharing. Ron, take it away.
Can everyone see my slides?
Yes, we can see them.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go through this, and what I want to kind of do. This has been a labor of. It's been a hobby at first, but for right now, let me give you a little background about this lecture. One of the things that happened on this lecture is that back in 2022, there was something that called ChatGPT came out. And that was, everybody was kind of looking at AI and they said, oh, okay, all right. Then everybody that created a groundswell of interest. So I was trying to figure out how does all of that work with critical infrastructure. So after I started looking at the dynamics of that, I started saying, well, what is our government or governments are saying about this? So that took me down, I would call it a rat hole, because I tell you what, after I started, it just didn't stop. So that's kind of how I've got it started. So this inquiry led to research and to these slides. Say one thing that many of the slides, when you get the deck, they're hyperlinked. I don't believe all of it's open source. What I'm telling you, and I'll give you some other pointers of interest, but let's get down into it right now. Bill talked a little bit about my background. I'm currently working, I just got accepted to work on the governance standard for IEEE, which is a great honor for me because now I can start really looking at it from a global standpoint of this whole environment called artificial intelligence. And here's my my agenda, and I want to kind of go through this, and we will go through it really fast. I don't believe in reading slides, so as the slides come up and go away, and oftentimes they will be hyperlinked, so you can, research them at your leisure. So that's the key thing. I just want to expose them to you from an informational standpoint, but I want to make sure that you get the whole presentation. Let's look at this. I have to say, whenever I start something, I said, well, let's define what it is. Many have seen this type of industrial revolution slides. I looked it up. I must have seen 10 or 20 of them to say where we are in this cyber industrial revolution cycle. But one of the things that's constant is that we can't go back. Just in my little let me see here. Trying to get something out of the way here so I can, there you go. We can't go back. And I think it's important that we understand, technology progress moves forward. And so what are we talking about now? We're talking about this whole thing called artificial intelligence. And where does that fit in this revolution? You can you can determine that yourself. But before we actually get into it, let's define what we're talking about. And I've asked this around for many people. I says, can you define to me artificial intelligence? And I get a whole bunch of hub. They really can't define it. So I would challenge each of you to come up with a definition that works for you, your environment, your country, all of that, so that you can have context as to what you're talking about in terms of artificial intelligence. And then we kind of work now. What I use is the US Code section 9401. And this is kind of from the federal government standpoint. Now, if I run and you can do this while you're listening to this. You can kind of look at, do a browser search, and you'll get about 10 different definitions. They'll change happy to glad, sorry to sad in their definitions, but it won't give you the context that you need. So a subset, the common denominator, the subset of that is large language models. I'm not going to get too much into that, but this is kind of what I have found and what I'm going to use as far as my context. Then there's a concept called RAG. Some of you may know about it, some of you don't, but I will tell you that is something that many of us can use to enhance our our use of AI. And what is it? Basically, we all heard about this thing called a prompt. So you do a prompt, and that kind of gives you something. And when you prompt a large language model, let's say your browser, it'll give you a whole bunch of references. So then what RAG does, and I'm really simplifying this, you can do a prompt within a prompt, okay? And if you want to learn about it, just put it in your browser, go to YouTube and say, put that term in there. And there's a plethora of various simple and complicated definitions of RAG. But when we talk about a large language model, that sits right underneath your AI. Then the next piece of that is what I call, I'm sorry, I didn't look at my advanced slides. This is the RAG piece, and it kind of talks about, the prompt within the prompt. And I just want to make sure everyone understands or have an appreciation for what this concept is. And a lot of people are using this because some of your large organizations will use this to interrogate and research within their organizations. So they don't go to the outside world. They'll stay within their environment. So you have some large multinational, very large companies that will use RAG, where you don't go out to the World Wide Web to get data. And the data stays within your organization. The next level down is what we call the deep learning and the neural networks and humanizing the algorithm. And all that means is that in the deep learning neural networks, this is a very simplified slide to show the input is trained. They get some hidden stuff in there, and it kind of figures out that what we're looking for is a dog. And so that's kind of how it is. Now multiply that times all of the things that we're doing, and you can see the complexity of what AI can do for us. And at the end of the day, and I've said this to many people, we got an elephant coming down the hall. Now, some of us will see it at that the elephant's here, but no, some of us are blinded to the fact that the elephant is coming down the hall. Oh yeah, I heard about that thing called AI. And one of these days I'm gonna get some of it. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna get some of it. So the thing is, the elephant is coming down the hall in some cases. And this is a slide that I thought was so cute. And if we go back a little bit, you remember we used to have something called a camera. We used to have something called a telephone. We used to have something called a calculator. All of that is resident in your smartphone. Everything that you see here is resident in your smartphone. And, we don't need all these other things. Mail, well, email. And now they say, well, sometimes you want to just write down a letter and send it to somebody. You don't get no personal mail. Maybe at Christmas time or some kind of holiday, you might get some mail. But other than that, you don't get mail unless it's a bill or some promotional material. So I just want to say, let's put AI in the middle of all this stuff, because it's sucking everything in like a dark hole, a space dark hole. So let's talk about where my research took me and where I started off. So again, 2022 is where I started looking at everything that I could find, and you'll see some of it here. But I wanted to, from a United States perspective, I know we have some folks from overseas, but from the United States perspective, this is what we did. This is what I did. So first of all, I looked at some executive orders. A lot of people don't understand the power of an executive order. And this kind of explains it. It's an order that the president uses to tell his executive agencies what he wants them to do. And these are the legal basis, and this is the scope and the impact. I had one person come up to me and says, "Oh, President Biden or President Obama or President Trump, they kind of sent something that's going to hit me." Well, not directly, but indirectly it will, because some of the agencies have to do it. And as a result of those agencies doing it, some of the contractors must do it. And then some of the contractors will kind of morph it into the private industry. So it's not directly binding on the private industry or organizations, but it comes close. But I just wanted to kind of give you some context of what an executive order is. Many do not know. And you can look it up in these statutes if you want to know some more information about it. Another one is the executive office of the president. Now, the thing is, this says, okay, the president says thou shalt do something. And the OMB says to the agencies, this is how you will do it and be in compliance with what the president said. Very simple. So you have to understand, OMB, for the most part, does what the president asked them to do, and they report on compliance on his executive orders. And that's why they call it the executive office of the president, because they have some things. I'll give you a case in point. There's something, the Office of Management and Budget. Well, management side of OMB handles the cyber portion of our government. The budget side, from my perspective, handles the physical and those types of things. And so I didn't realize the impact of that until I was retiring, when I was presenting in front of a group of the ICAM, Identity Credentialing and Access Management. And I says, we got this brand new document. This was in June of 2011. And I had someone in the back of the room said, whoa, wait a minute. How you mean that it's published? I says, well, OMB said that we're done. It took us 3 years to do it. They said we're done. I'm from the budget. I haven't seen it. So therefore, my office hasn't seen it. So it's not going anywhere. So it took from June to December to make it formalized within 2011. So just to let you know, sometimes I used to joke about it. See, one of these days I'm going to introduce the M to the B of OMB. So that's just something that we do. Now, the other thing is that, as we need to look at, is the Congressional Reference Service. You say, well, why are you doing this? What they will do is take these orders and take this documentation, and they will do an analysis and reference of a given executive order or a congressional action, and they will provide that to all of Congress. It's very, it's nonpartisan, confidential, kind of. And it's not enforceable. They're just saying, here's what we see based on what you said, Mr. Dignitary or President or whatever. That's all they do. It's part of the jurisdiction of the Library of Congress. So I'm not going to try to go into that, but on the other side of that coin, it is very important. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So let's start off with the executive order. The executive order we're talking about is the one that really got me going back in October 2023. And I've given 2 or 3 briefings about this executive order, and then on the 20th of this year, it was rescinded. I said, oh my gosh. So, we got to almost start over. But if you look at the bullets here at your leisure, you can see the kinds of things that this document, it was over 104 separate actions that President Biden requested to the agencies to do. Okay. And so they said, oh man, that's something else. Well, if you want to find it, this is how you find it. Now, presidents, ever since I've been involved with the federal government, they leave. And when they leave, all of their executive orders kind of go into la la land. That's what I call it, but they're actually still there. What they do is they put them into an archival state, so you can get all of President Biden's executive orders and all of the previous executive orders of President Trump, our current President Trump. I call it Trump 1.0. So if you notice, he did a lot of stuff on executive orders, and you can find it in the archives. And when you start reading those, you have to understand that a lot of what President Biden did was to build on his work. So when they rescinded it, it was kind of a thing. So what he did on the 23rd, he issued an executive order on the 23rd, as you see here, to for his folks to take a look at it to see what is good and what is bad of this executive order 14110. But here's the rest of the executive orders that he did in promotion of artificial intelligence. So when we talked about the Congressional Reference Service, and this is kind of what I wanted to kind of bring to you, and we're going to speed it up here in a minute, but this is what I wanted to bring to you, is just to show you, some of the things that they have on their agenda. Artificial intelligence for Congress. Remember, they started off with the executive order. Well, I started looking at it for the executive order 14110 from President Biden. That was in, I think this was in November of 2023. So in November 2023, they put this report out. And this particular report, as you can see here, is hyperlinked. When you get it, you can just click on it and you can get it. But I went a step further. And I said, well, what else have they said about artificial intelligence? Here is a laundry list of all of the reports that the Congressional Reference Service did relative to artificial intelligence since 2016. I didn't want to go beyond that. Some of that wasn't relevant. But as you can see, back in 2017, there was an overview of artificial intelligence, which is a very interesting report because they identified then some of the portions we need to have in artificial intelligence. Just as an announcement, I will be giving a lecture, a detailed lecture of this and some other things at a conference in Houston, Texas. And it's going to be the changing of the guard, and where we actually get into that. And also there's an article that I wrote inside of this document here. So we'll just move on. Now let's talk about another organization. Another organization that many know of but don't know about is what you call the Government Accountability Office. And what they do is Congress will say, hey, GAO, I want to know about this particular topic. Then what they will do is they will publish reports on a particular topic. So what I did is I says, okay, let me see what GAO had to say. And so this one was December of 2023. Now, I will tell you how to read these reports. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see GAO 24 and whatever that number is. 24 means the fiscal year. The fiscal year in the United States goes from 1 October to 30 September. So their nomenclature is from 1 October. So the first one that they publish in October will have number one, and then it goes on from there. So that's kind of how that works. But as you can see, they did do an assessment of it back in December of 2023. And previous to that, as soon as my thing works, they have done some others where it talks about governance, data, performance, monitoring. These documents are very, very, those of you, I know we've got one or two that are doing some research in AI, it'll be a good place to take a look at to see what was said, and they're very well referenced. mostly on other governmental agencies, other countries, standards, all of that. These documents are referenced. So that's that one. And then we had another one. I'm going to keep going where they've done additional ones. So to help you out, here you go. They have all of these products available that deal with AI. And I think that's a very, very important piece that you should have an understanding of. This is more that they have. So the other one was NIST. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has been a mainstay in AI. They have started a whole bunch of project areas, but what they did early on is they published this leadership in AI. And this is a very good document. Again, this is hyperlinked, and you could go to it, and it has a lot of rich stuff in it. So as a result of the executive order 14110, they had to publish this document. What happened was that they wanted this document to deal with generative AI, and I'm not going to go into or what generative is or machine learning, and you can read it for yourself. This is a good research document. It's well referenced. As anyone has looked at in this document, it is well referenced. And so when you look at them side by side, these are the two documents. And then there's in the bottom there's a video explainer, and that's very good for you to view. Okay, so again, this is the risk management framework. This is the one on generative AI that they published. This is all available open source. Now we want to talk about CISA, and I think I'm doing good. So we want to talk about CISA. As a result of the executive order, and when I say executive order, I mean the 14110, CISA created this, Secure by Design. Very interesting document. So now, if you are and sometimes if I use Copilot or AI in part of my lectures or writing, I always cite it. You know, that's a good thing to have, is to get yourself in the habit of citing where you got stuff. So I'm not going to say that I wrote those words. The rest of the words pretty much I wrote, but this one I didn't because I just wanted to make sure we got it right. But secure by design is a concept, and if you read the document itself, it basically will say what needs to happen in this. What they have done since they published this document, you will see alerts that come from the CISA alert team, and they will articulate those alerts to secure by design. And they'll say, this is a secure by design alert, and they'll put the logo on that alert. And many of you may have seen it. And like Pilot for Artificial Enabled Vulnerability Detection, and they had an alert about that. And I'm not going to go into these alerts, but you know, I know some people really like that stuff, so they can have fun with it. So just so they can have more fun, I gave them some more alerts and things that they can go to. And these are all relatively new alerts. These are not anything that happened way back when, because you know that AI has been it's a new kind of discipline. So they've been looking at it in terms of what they said in the Secure by Design document. Here's some more as of January 2025. So, you know, and so what I've been doing is I've been doing some more research. Now, there's some other things that happen in this area, and I want to go and talk about this Open Web Application Security Project, OWASP. Now, in Secure by Design, one of the things it says that software manufacturers, and I don't read slides generally, but I want to make sure I read this one. Software manufacturers adhere to the principles within this document that is secure by design. companies buying software should ask the hard questions of their vendors to reasonably protect themselves. That's the rest of that sentence. Okay, well, how am I supposed to do that? That was my first question. How am I supposed to do that? Well, the only way I know to do that is, just challenge the application manufacturers to prove to me that their stuff is secure. Now, how am I going to do that? I use OWASP. And what OWASP has been doing, and this is one of them, they have their top 10 application security risks. Okay. And I said, okay. So what I would do, and I had a couple of people some years ago, I said, okay, have the vendor, if they're going to sell me some software, an application, have the vendor to tell me how they mitigate these security risks. And if they can't mitigate those security risks in their application, I'd stay away from it. Okay. It's up to you. That's the risk. You may say, well, I gotta have that software. So if they don't mitigate these risks within their application, and there's a whole thing behind this, and I've been studying this thing, since about 2017. That's when this one first came out that I've seen. Is some before that. So then I said, okay, fine. That's really wonderful for the IT folks. Now, but we're not talking IT. What we're talking about is large language models. Oh, there you go. So now they've got the top 10 large language model applications in 2025. How do you do LLM09? Misinformation. They have a whole discussion on that. And so what I want to expose to you or explain to you about how all of that works. When we start looking at it, best practices, again, these are all hyperlinked. You can find it for yourself. And if you're in that space, you may want to take a deep dive into it. And then here are some of the other artifacts that OWASP done. They have done some really good work in terms of AI, large language models, and the applications that you may have or not have. The Secure by Design folks, what they will do is they will say, hey, use OWASP to mitigate the attack or the alert that we just put out for you. They've done that in many, many instances. I'm saying, well, again, what I was thinking about is fairly good. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't give everyone some homework. This is the homework. These are the references if you're so desired to do it. Remember, though, some of these links may not work. So you'd have to get the title of this link, put it in your browser, and they'll generally pop up. But I haven't went back through and changed them all, because what I do is I see something, I download it. So I have it. So I said, well, I just want to expose that to you so that you will have something that you can kind of work with. Okay, where am I at? Okay. And here's some more. So you can see I've been a busy bee. I've been trying to figure all of this stuff out. But see, then I began to say, all right, let me go back, and let's think about from the beginning to now. All right. When I first got involved with it, we had ChatGPT, and then Google had Bard or Baird or however you want to pronounce it, and they were fighting each other. They were saying, I got a better mousetrap than you do. And they were going back. Bard is better than ChatGPT, and they were going back and forth. And so other people says, "Oh no, I can play in this game too." Copilot. Now, if you have Microsoft Edge, you got Copilot. Simple. And Bard has morphed into Gemini. So I mean, I didn't want to go into all of it, but there are competing things. And so I think I want you to make sure, like for instance, if we go on our browser and we browse, what the browser will do is give you references. What Copilot, GPT, ChatGPT, and Barrett and Gemini will do, they will give you the answer to the question. That's been my uneducated assessment of that. And I tell you what, that is really good. Now, the Adobe one is interesting because let's say many of you have Adobe documents. And, I had a document, it must have been about 200 pages. And I says, well, I like reading, but my eyes sometimes don't want to do it anymore. So they have something called AI Assistant. Now, what it does, it interrogates the document that's in Adobe. And after it analyzes it and does that, then it will says, okay, ask it questions. So you say, what are the 3 tenets of the document or the 10 tenets of the document? Within 3 seconds, it will give it to you. And the beauty of this is that it will show you within that document where it got the answer. So it will show you. All you do is just click on the answer. There's a little number next to it. And if you do have AI Assistant, put that into your, put it in Adobe, do AI Assistant. It'll do its little dance. And then it'll says, oh, this document is about this. And then it'll have you some questions, or you can ask it anything. And if you can't find it, it will say, I can't find it in the document. That's the beauty of this document, of this particular technology, because it helps me, like a calculator helps me add stuff. This helps me read a document, and I can go back to the document to see what it's saying and whether it got the right interpretation. Always, always, always check the results of your AI. So that brings me to this piece, our students. Our students now are looking at, they're going on their computers. And I like this little one here. And I have in one of my slides that the little kid is saying, are we there yet? And, it's one of those classic things if you're traveling with children. But the student that's behind this laptop, notebook, whatever you want to call it today, what are they researching? Are they researching stuff, or they're talking to the bot? Okay, this is something that you have to do. And then how we're working these things is that we have bots checking bots. The reason why I say that is because, let's say, for instance, we have something in academia called Turnitin, which checks plagiarism in writing. And it also have a AI detector in it. And it says, oh, well, that's great. Well, that's a GPT-0. Okay. So these bots are checking whether something is or is not AI. Then they have something called GPT Pass. Now, what is GPT Pass? They'll take your AI generated text and they will humanize it and make it non-detectable as AI. That's huge. So that puts more challenges on academia to determine the integrity of the writings that we're receiving. The other thing that I noticed is that the AI chip. So we're going to do some computation locally. And where's my data? My data could be on my phone or my laptop or wherever it is. And it will do its AI stuff right there using that chip. And if you notice, if some of y'all have iPhone or some other types of phones, they will have a chip in there that will do some portions of AI. This is, of course, I use the AI to generate this. That just says, hey, put a chip in a computer, and it did it. So that's kind of what that is. But again, I have a student that's, he's got some old-fashioned stuff like a pen and paper, but he's looking at a computer. Now, does this computer has the computational power to do some stuff? It may or may not. How do I interrogate data on community drives? How do I organizational OneDrives, the data on Dropbox? You think about it. I got an AI on this guy's shoulder and looking at what he and the young lady is doing. So I think it's something that we have to sensitize ourselves to. So At the end of the day, AI is in the room. And one of the things in this picture I'd like you to view is a bunch of old guys and one old lady, older lady. They're not old. Ladies are not old. So I'm saying is that, and if you notice, they don't have any technology. They all have paper. AI is in the room and looking at them, and they says, well, why don't they using AI in their meetings? Why aren't they doing all these kinds of stuff? So, I mean, the AI is in the room. It's the elephant in the room is AI. I don't care how you cut it. They say, well, we're not going to allow the use of it. How can you not allow the use of it? That's the question. People do what's inspected, not what's expected. And so when we start looking at these things, we have to really understand what environment that we're in, just like telling, I'm going to date myself, that you can't use Cliff Notes uh, to read a book. And those of you that's old enough to remember Cliff Notes, you know, that kind of summarizes the book. And they said you can't use it. Of course, everybody used it, you know? Oh, you can't use a calculator. Of course, they're going to use it. So I'm just saying to you is, uh, you know, so there's a dilemma. Even some of the AI, competing AIs have the dilemma. And the last thing that I want to bring up is this thing called DeepSeek. Now, I'm not going to really talk about it. I've given you a link to the document, their core document, the version 3 document on DeepSeek. And there's two things that it does: the chain of thought. And the chain of thought is more than predictive. And I'm not going to get into it. This document that you have hyperlinked here that will get you into more of it, and distillation. And what that does is that gives examples without giving all of the information. So with that, this kind of concludes my lecture here, and I hope I don't get beat up because I ran over, but I don't think I did. So Bill, this kind of ends this lecture, and see if y'all have any questions.
Okay, thank you. You know, you're right on time. You're doing great on the
Okay.
time. Okay, now there are a ton of comments and questions, dozens and dozens and dozens. So forgive me in advance because we won't be able to catch all of them, but we'll do what we can in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's start with the question that here Valerie asks. Trump revised Biden's executive order based on Trump's original or something to that effect. What's your stance on these modifications with the executive order on AI and its effects for changes in political regimes? So she's asked you a political question. So uh,
Well, I won't get political, but what I will say is this. But what I will say is this. Maybe I mentioned it, but maybe you didn't catch it. What happened was I may not have mentioned it, so it's my fault. When he rescinded on the 20th of January, the AI, he also put in his document that is hyperlinked on the 23rd of January. I'm saying January, that he will have two of his special assistants look at every aspect of President Biden's AI and report back to them as to what the agencies can or cannot use. So that was significant because I thought, oh gosh, they're just going to throw it away. But no, he didn't do that. What he did was, on the 23rd, he issued another AI, another executive order that said that he will have his special assistants query all of the agencies to see the worth of the elements. And remember, there was 104 of them that he told the agencies they should be doing. The civilian agencies, they can't tell Congress what to do, can't tell the judiciary what to do, but this is just for the executive agencies. Okay, I hope that answered your question. You'd have to read the AI document that he issued on the 23rd of January.
all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur asks, CSR, are they federal employees? That goes way back to the first part of your presentation.
Yes,
They are. Okay.
they are.
All right. I'm going to skip over Valerie's next question to make sure we give. Marina asks, are we able to ask Dr. Martin if the briefings he presented on President Biden's EO 14440 are available online?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
What I did is, let me move back. You can find them, and it's a different way to find them. Excuse me, I have to do it the old-fashioned way here. You can find them on, they archived all of President, all right, here it is. They archived all of his executive orders. At first, you just couldn't find them. But now this link, I changed the link to make sure that you can get to the White House briefing on it. Now, here's another way of doing it. All executive orders are in the Federal Register. So if you was to take that title of that executive, so executive order on secure, safe, trustworthy, da 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 da, put it in your browser and it will come up as a Federal Register. I didn't want to get into the Federal Register portion of it, but that's a public document. But this is the way that you can get it. This is the way that you can get his order, and also President Trump's previous orders that are archived. The Library of Congress maintains that.
Now, I think her question was actually your briefings on these executive orders, because you had mentioned earlier that you had done some briefings.
Mm-hmm.
If the briefings of your presentation are available online.
They're not available online, but they can be available. I mean, what I did is I took the executive order 14110 and I dissected it. And then I took, there's something called the AI Bill of Rights. I do have copies of it, but it's hard to find. I think somebody will publish it or make it available. But if you can find the AI Bill of Rights, it basically articulates everything that President Trump 1.0 and President Biden did in AI and says this is what you should do. It's a Bill of Rights. And so it's very extensive. It's a huge document. And hopefully that we'll be able to find the links. See, now what happened was that was a special agency within the President Biden's administrative office that created that. So and it happens with all of them, when they go away, so there's these reports, unless somebody captures them and republish them. We can talk offline on that, but they are available and it is massive. I'm going to tell you, because I was going through my briefings actually go through each one of those things that's in the AI Bill of Rights. That's
Thank
something
you.
that I can't, I really can't, it's a
Yeah.
little massive to try to talk about right now. But
Right.
they are available. We can talk offline and I can make that available to you.
And the Major Nelson had noted, it's not a question, it's a comment. The Trump administration rescinded, but not modified, but rescinded EO 14110. This new guidance is pending. There are no effects other than stopping the work at this time. The administration has 120 days from the day it was provided to make those changes. I want to go on now to a question that Aslak asks. He says, I have a problem with the word artificial. It seems like intelligent computers would be better. Do you know where the term who originated that term artificial intelligence?
No, but Hinton is a guy named Jeffrey or Godfrey Hinton. He is kind of the guru, and I think he got a Nobel Peace Prize for that. You kind of look at some of his stuff, and he talks about the early stages of artificial intelligence. Now, where it originated, that goes beyond what I know about today. Maybe something I can take a look at, but
And
I
there
don't
may be
know.
someone in the audience that knows
Yeah,
the
I don't know
answer to
where it
that too.
started.
Yeah.
All I know is that, because you have to also look at too, when we start looking at robotics, and you start looking at those things that are non-human, they're saying it's artificial. Is it intelligent? I don't know. It might be intelligent in its own way, but I look at there's a show that but I'm not advertising it, but it's a good show, Post Human, and it's a very good show that talks about the AI evolution. And I will say that you can find it if you just browse. It's called Post. I'm not going to say where I get it from, but if you browse it, you'll find it. And there's another one, IRL, that's done. And so I've been trying to figure out the dynamics of it, but I don't know the source of it.
All right. I want to give a shout out to Major Nelson, who has been providing quite a bit of information in the text chat, including some links that I would encourage people to copy in and keep in mind. I'm sorting through here. Okay, it says here, Pigos says the term artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy in 1955.
Okay, I
Wow,
knew it was something like that. Uh-huh.
that's a long time ago.
Yeah,
And
it
then,
was. Yeah, it was. And I thank you for bringing it up. And the reason why I didn't want to, articulate that, I do know Hinton had mentioned that in one of his lectures about the 50s. I didn't know the dynamics of it, so I didn't want to kind of talk about it.
yeah, yes, the anyway, I'm just reading the chat. I don't want to go. Yeah, there's quite a flurry of discussion having to do with that, with the answer to that question. So it's quite interesting. You'll have to read that later. Okay. I want to do, I think this is the final comment, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the end. Dr. John Reynolds says there are two options for SW solution providers for secure software lifecycle compliance, and he lists them there. So it would be helpful for everybody, again, to note that in the text chat. By the way, because of the wealth of information in the text chat, I will see if Zoom will allow me to include the text chat with the links that I send out. It will include the transcript of the presentation, and we're going to be sending the slides. Let me stop now because we're running out of time. And
Stop sharing.
yes, go ahead and stop sharing, and then I will share. Whoops. I'll try to share. Okay, I'm back to my slides. I have just a little bit of housekeeping before we conclude. I want to let everybody know that we have these webinars every single month. The one in March will be with Dr. Sharon Burton, and it's the interconnectedness of cybersecurity leadership, change management, and business process improvement. Then many people don't realize that we offer a number of degrees in sustainability. So we've asked Aslak Movder from Norway to give a presentation on the Nordic model of sustainability. Just a word on that. Most people may not realize that Norway leads in the area of sustainability in almost every way. And Aslak will be talking about what they're doing over there. In May, we'll have one of our professors, Jeff Olesen, talking about space engineering. And then we'll have a webinar in June that I didn't put on this slide. I do want to let everybody know too that we're organizing GrayCon 2025. It'll be on our campus in Laurel, Maryland on Wednesday, July 16th. Check out the website, graycon.org. This is a great intersection of AI, cybersecurity, and space engineering. I think that it's a very intriguing combination of things, and you can find out more. They are also looking for some webinar, actually not webinar, GrayCon presenters, and you can find out more about it there as well. And then finally, as we approach the end of our time together, links to the slides and the recording, and if I can, to the text chat, will be sent to everybody who registered for this session. That includes those who watch it here with us live, and those will pick it up on demand. If you want a certificate of completion, I'll be sending you an email. When you get the email, all you need to do is reply to the email, and I will send a certificate of completion to you. This applies for both live session and on-demand viewers. Let me turn my webcam back on. And all you need to do is reply to the email. Be happy to send that to you. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's been a great session today, a very deep dive into this area, and yet at the same time recognizing just how much there is to learn in this field. So it's been a great discussion. I want to thank everybody who's joined us today, and be looking for that email from me later today or early tomorrow.